Hi there. Good to see you. My name is Marvell Adams Jr. I serve as CEO of Caregiver Action Network, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about Care 2030, as well as give you an insight into my caregiver journey as well. But first, I just feel compelled to say that roughly 26 years ago, I was at the College of Charleston in South Carolina. And during that year, it was the first year that South Carolina had moved up and been one of the first to have their primaries. And I had the chance to sit in the audience and see one Secretary Dole at the College of Charleston speak during that presidential candidate speaker series. So it is wonderful to be here with you again. So thank you so much for your time. So Caregiver Action Network is one of the largest caregiving organizations in the country. We support caregivers of all shapes, sizes, ages, disease, condition, state, and we have a really big mission. Our mission really is to support caregivers where they are with the resources they need when they need them. And that's a pretty big goal for us to really sink our teeth into. And so what I'm going to talk about in a little bit is a new initiative called Care 2030 that Steve Schwab and I recently talked about, and he asked me to come to the convening to share a little bit more about. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about my own caregiver journey. I grew up in rural South Carolina, and believe it or not, I was a part of the last phase of desegregation of schools and busing in South Carolina that actually continued into the 80s. But during that time, I was a caregiver. I was a caregiver for my mom. Twice, actually, a caregiving youth for my mom. Once when she had a stroke, and my after school just changed dramatically. My grocery shopping for myself in my early teens, or even learning how to do my laundry and going on to college to teach my roommates how to do their laundry because they had no idea. But a lot of that came back to being a caregiving youth for my mom. Alongside that, she had major surgery, in which again, in my teens, I was a caregiving youth for my mom. I had two older brothers, but they had moved out of the house and actually weren't there, and so I was kind of an only child. But to make things even more interesting is that I was a caregiver for my mom a third time as a teenager. And during that time was when my brother Stacy was deployed from San Diego to the Persian Gulf in 1990. He was on the USS Independence, and I found myself in the role of grief counselor for my mom. He did not pass away. He was not injured, actually. But what did happen is that he sent a letter home when he got news that he was going to be deployed. And as I was, particularly accustomed to doing, I would open mail if it just seemed interesting. And then I would seal it back up before my mom or my dad got home. And so I saw this letter come in the mail, and it was clearly from my brother, Stacy, who was in the Navy, and I opened it up. And it was a little bit of what you would expect. He said, I don't know what's going to happen. I have orders that were being deployed to the Persian Gulf on the USS Independence, and he says, I don't know when I'll see you again. And I could hear my mom open the letter. I was in my room, and she began to cry. And I came out of the room because I knew what she was crying about. She didn't have to tell me because I'd already read the letter. But the letter had come 2 days before because I'd hidden it. Because I'd read it, and it was so heart-wrenching for me to give this letter to my mom and allow her to feel the pain of one of her sons go off to war. Now, the good part of the story is if you know the historians in the room, the USS Independence actually was deployed during Operation Desert Shield, but actually left and was in port in Japan during the military operations there. So Stacy was just fine. But even a part of that journey, that was an inspiration for my own career. I became a nursing home administrator at the age of 25 and have devoted my life to serving caregivers and those that support individuals needing care. I did that in Rochester, New York, and Steve Schwab and I actually have similar paths that we realized crossed our ways years ago. I was a CARF accreditation surveyor. I would survey other communities that served residents and individuals and patients. I did that for 15 years. I was chief operating officer of a large not-for-profit called Kendall that provided aging services to older adults. And all of that culminated me coming to Caregiver Action Network about 3 years ago. The reason I share that with you is that over the last 20 plus years, I've seen a lot when it comes to caregiving. I've seen a lot when it comes to providing individuals the support they need it, when they need it, and I've certainly seen a lot of things that could be done better. But over that journey, many individuals don't call themselves a caregiver. They call themselves son, they call themselves little brother, comic relief at times when I would tell my mom the story of my dad freaking out when we found her on the floor after she had a stroke, and he calls up and he says to 911, my wife has fallen and she can't get up. At the time, that was a very popular commercial that was on. But all of that really led me to understanding that the role of caregiver is so deeply ingrained in family that for me, it was a matter of service to be able to spend my career supporting caregivers. So the thing that really stands out for me is that through all of my time and all of the effort, I have actually yet to see an accessible, cohesive, and coordinated caregiver support system in the US. And I say that because it's not only a disappointment because of our fragmented system, but it really, as you've heard this morning with the Blueprint for Action, an opportunity for so many of us to come together and do more. And so when I think about and understand the Elizabeth Dole Foundation National Blueprint for Action, to me it really speaks to making a leap forward in the way that we provide care and how we support caregivers, because we all know they are the backbone of our health care and our wellness system. So for us, it really comes down to understanding how can Caregiver Action Network, where our being is really to be able to rubber meets the road and provide support and services to caregivers, how do we take this blueprint and then work alongside EDF and other individuals in the caregiver support ecosystem to make these actions really stick for caregivers. So a part of that broader catalyst for collaboration with the National Blueprint for Action is Care 2030. And I'll briefly tell you a little bit about it. So this is really about our opportunity to build the nation's caregiver infrastructure. It's a very lofty goal. My board told me so. And I said, be that as it may, we really are in a position at Caregiver Action Network, if we are going to be an entry point for guiding caregivers, no matter what their lived experience or background or what the disease or condition may be of their loved one, if we are going to be that point of entry for them, we have to understand this ecosystem, but we also have to recognize that there are gaps, that there's fractures, that there's siloing, and that we have to do things in a more peer-oriented way. 3 things that we came to conclusion on along with our partners that I'll share you a list of in a moment. Visibility. As we all know, if caregivers aren't seen, they cannot be supported, if they're not recognized by themselves or recognized by those around them. Navigation. Caregivers have to have a way to be able to find resources. They have to have a way that is accessible and, quite frankly, not another full-time job just to navigate being a caregiver so you can then turn around and spend the hours putting hands on or sorting someone as well as being a working caregiver. And the last part about it that's really important is the system orchestration piece of it, is recognizing that we cannot continue in a fragmented system, that we really have to come together and do more together. So across this time, we will spend over the next 18 months or so on the road to the 30th, which will be the 30th anniversary of the National Family Caregivers Month, which CAN spearheaded 30 years ago. And so in 2027, we'll see that milestone come along. We also lead the National Caregiver Help Desk, which is an access point, no wrong door access point for caregivers, whether that's through phone, email, web chat, or even through an app that we launched, as well as offering some added enhanced ability around following caregivers longitudinally. And then last, we started this year a Care Leadership Summit as a means to be a catalyst for and jumpstart our collaboration with other organizations. And so we brought together individuals, leaders from many care support organizations and research entities to really find out what should we and could we be doing better together. And we really realized that a lot of the things that caregivers are looking for exist out in the wider world. They're just fragmented and not very easy to navigate. So to that end, Caregiver Action Network internally, some of the things we're working on in support of Caregiver Care 2030 is making sure that we are using what we call caregiver intelligence, meaning taking in and understanding what caregivers are telling us through our help desk, through our roundtables, through other impactful ways that we engage with caregivers, and using that so that our system learns and grows. Workforce integration, which I'll talk more about in just a second, even though my time's out, and then continuous innovation. Caregiver-ready workplaces is our rebranding of an initiative that we started several years ago working with USAID to be their caregiver support infrastructure for USAID employees around the world. We would support them with resources, guidance, as well as counseling. And so we decided to really take this and ramp it up to something that was going to be much more meaningful to a broader audience, recognizing that 1 in 4 individuals or 1 in 4 employees are family caregivers, that $34 billion in hidden costs are driven by lost productivity and absenteeism, that 425% potential return on investment when an employer actually invests in caregivers on the job, that they will see a return on investment fourfold. But also recognizing that when we asked employers whether or not caregiving impacted the performance of the organization or the employee, only 24% said yes. But you compare that to 80% of employees said that their caregiving or the caregiving culture within the organization impacted their performance. So this all comes down to actually having the solutions that allow for navigation, education, community, and innovation all built into a culture-changing programmatic approach to systemically help organizations, big and small, find ways to create a caregiver-friendly and caregiver-ready workplace. As I mentioned, USAID was one of our first clients, and we've learned from a great deal of that time with them. But we've also have other individuals and corporations that have joined us, and we've even begun to talk with EDF about how we can link arms and really find bigger and better ways to support caregivers in the workplace. Because at the end of the day, caregiver support has to be embedded in the workplace. Because if caregivers are forced to choose between their loved one and their place of work, no matter what they tell you, no matter what their actions may be, eventually the workplace will lose out on that proposition. Early this year, there were statistics coming out aggregated around workplace exit surveys that 42% of women said the reason they left their job was because of a caregiving responsibility. Only 18% say they left their job because of money. So this is a much bigger issue than I think we even recognize sitting here today. And so our work around caregiver-ready workplaces is really to get at the heart of that matter. So I really appreciate you guys letting me come up here and tell a little bit more about it. And if you're interested to learn more, you can check us out online. Thanks.